Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Scott Anton, and I manage business development with Gideon Taylor. And welcome to our webinar this afternoon or today, featuring University of Utah and talking about their additional pay eForm and leave request eForm. I'm excited to see it myself because I don't think I've seen either one of those forms in action yet. A little bit of housekeeping. This is an ongoing series that Gideon Taylor hosts, our GT eForms Lunch and Learn series. And now that you've registered for one, you will get invitations to future ones. And if there are ever topics that are of interest to you, we encourage you to join us. We try to do these on a monthly basis. The one that we have coming up in March is going to be featuring, and Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be featuring an exciting new integration between eForms and our chatbot, IDA, our digital assistant, which is all AI-based. It's driven off of Oracle Digital Assistant and hosted in OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And the capabilities that we're delivering now with GT eForms integration with IDA are pretty cool, to allow for IDA to provide around-the-clock support to users within your organization that might be accessing eForms. They might have questions about eForms transactions and business processes. It will also be a support assistant for those folks within your organization that are building eForms. Hey, how do I get my eForm to do this? Or how do I get it to do that? So that'll be coming up this year. We're going to be featuring that as our webinar in March. We'll also be showing it at the Alliance Conference for those of you who are joining us at Alliance in New Orleans in a couple weeks. As far as today's webinar goes, if you have questions, feel free to pose those in the chat or the Q&A feature within Teams. We're more than happy to take a pause and respond to those as they come in. We'll also reserve some time at the end to go through any that might be remaining and answer any last minute questions you guys have. Following the webinar, usually within a week or so, you should receive a link to the recording, so you can go ahead and view that again at your leisure and share that with others if you'd like. You can also typically find those posted on our YouTube channel as well as our website. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters, Stacy Rigby and Tad Helquist, two of our favorite senior business systems analysts at the University of Utah. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Stacy.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
Okay, I'm going to present my screen. And I want to talk a little bit about the University of Utah. I am a senior business system analyst at the University of Utah, and I will be one of the presenters today, as mentioned. Tad Helquist will be presenting as well. He will be presenting on the leave request eForm. Hi, Tad. And I will be presenting on the multiple pay eForm. That's part of a suite that we have, an additional pay eForm suite. And I'm pretty excited to show you all the functionality that's in that. So I've got a couple slides that I'd like to first show you here. The University of Utah is located in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have about 36,000 students enrolled at the university currently. We have over 47,000 employees, and we have PeopleSoft HCM, CRM, student financials. We are currently on PeopleTools 8.60.13 and PeopleSoft 9.2 and currently on Image 50. We have been with Gideon Taylor eForms for quite a while. So we have a vast variety of different types of eForms. We have some extremely old eForms that we are anxiously awaiting to have that float to the top of our priority list to get upgraded to the latest and greatest. So we do have eForms on prior to 3.x, and we also have 3.x eForms. So we have classic eForms, we have eForms that are fluid, and also we have fluid helium performance eForms, which is the additional pay and multi-pay eForm that I'll be showing you today. We are proud about this. We are #1 public university in the West, according to the Wall Street Journal. And we first implemented eForms with Gideon Taylor in 2008. It's been quite a while that we've been with them, and we've been excited and very pleased with the product ever since we implemented it. On average, we have more than 63,000 eForms, and that will grow immensely once we have all of the eForms that we are presenting today fully up and running for the additional pay suite. And we also have other eForms that are waiting in the wings that we are excited to work on and implement down the road. So here's a list of our current existing eForms, such as hire, change employment status. We work heavily with I-9 and E-Verify, additional pay, multi-pay leave, and we are slotting to have the correct pay eForm sometime in the near future. So our paper process for the additional pay eForm was quite manual for a very long time. The paper forms took a while to fill out and obtain all of the different approvals that are needed in order to sign off and get it prepared to send to the payroll team. The signatures, there was a variety of different signature difficulties that we had on the paper forms. The signatures were not consistent between the departments. At times we had missing signatures, and since it was on paper, there was no way to validate if the signature was the approver that was needed for that specific additional pay. The payroll team manually entered data into the PeopleSoft additional pay component, which was on average over 200 hours each pay period from that team. We also, as part of the paper or the process prior to the eForm solution, is that we had a custom CIP page that the University of Utah created and designed that certain departments were allowed to access. This access had to be granted by the security team and managed and maintained that way. So it was quite involved. With the eForm solution that we partnered with Gideon Taylor with to create this suite, we transitioned to no paper. And with the new solution, the approvals are now consistent between the departments. The eForm will always route to all the required approvers, and the routing will ensure the correct person is approving that eForm when it is appropriate. We have decreased the approval timeframe by the system automatically sending emails and work list notifications to the pending approvers. And as such, we have no manual data entry by the payroll team any longer unless it is an off-cycle check. Elimination of the custom CIP page in PeopleSoft is also something that we are very excited to have that as no longer as a need. So the additional pay eForm suite is replacing the paper, as I've mentioned. The payroll department processes all of these additional payments for the following earnings code. And here is a short list right here. The additional pay eForm suite is accessed through a custom tile in our portal. When a user clicks on that tile, it will take them to our navigation collection right here. And the additional pay allows a payment for one employee at a time, where multiple pay allows payments for multiple employees under the same earning code, but potentially using different earning sources. So I will be doing a demonstration. I have a video that I will be showing you right here. So I will turn off my camera and play that video.
Stacy, if you have any audio on this video, you'll need to share the audio in Teams. And you can do that, I think, by clicking the triple dot more. And let me just see if I'm finding this right. Maybe that's...
Apologies
if
for
you
that.
stop sharing, and then when you go to share again, when you select which screen to share, there's a checkbox just right there that you can say share sound.
Include sound. There we go. Let's try this one more time. Once again, sorry about that. In the additional pay eForms
much better.
navigation collection,
Thanks.
you will
Thank
see
you.
both additional pay as well as multiple pay. To start a multiple pay form, click the Add Multiple Pay link. It's going to take me to a search page where I have to enter a department. I'm going to go ahead and enter department 00847. That is my hematology department, and click search. That will open up the multi-pay form, and you can see we've already populated in the upper section our department ID right here. In this upper section, we also have an effective date and the earnings code fields that we are going to pay our employees with. These are the fields that are part of the additional pay component. I'm going to go ahead and select an effective date. And I'm also going to start with selecting an earnings code of CIP, which is going to be our clinical income pay. Notice that when I selected this earnings code, a few fields dynamically showed. I want to first talk about this clone from feature. This is such a very cool feature that allows a user to clone a previously submitted multi-pay eForm by selecting a form ID. And when the user selects that form ID, they're going to have the effective date, the earnings code, the chart fields, and the payee grid fields all populate with the data from that selected form ID. So this is a way for users to enter a multiple payee form with the same information, but potentially using a different earning code or use a different effective date, which is something that we needed here at the University of Utah. So that's the clone from feature. I'm going to talk about these two checkboxes in just a moment, but I first want to talk about the chart fields grid. As you will note, our org ID is automatically populated here. One of the things about the multi-pay form is that typically the chart field needs to come from the same department that is getting paid out. One of the great things about this form is that we have many configured validations in place. As an example, if you select a chart field that has a fund 5,000, you're going to get an error message letting you know that that fund is actually not eligible as a funding source for multi-pay forms. So let me go ahead and enter a quick combo code here. I want to draw your attention to the combo found field, which is on our additional pay eForm as well. This combo found field tells us if we have multiple matches based upon the information we have so far in our chart field, or if there are no matches, or if a combo code is found, which is a specific single match. But as soon as I enter an account here, which is going to be a fund 5,000 for this chart field, you'll see that I get an error message letting me know that I've selected an associated fund 5,000 for this chart field. So instead, I'm going to enter a chart field that I know that will work for multi-pay. So with this chart field that I'm entering, it will have a fund 2,000, which is great. Here shows a value of code found, which means this entire chart field is one combo code that we were able to uniquely identify as active in the system. I want to talk about this load eligible employees checkbox up here. But first, I'm going to direct your eyes down to the payees grid. This is where you will enter all of the employees who are getting paid this clinical income pay using the chart field that we've specified. So you can individually add employees one at a time. Or if you want to pay maybe 3 or 4 employees in this department, you can add them here by clicking the prompt, look up, find that employee, and then enter them as many rows as you want. Another option, if you want to actually pay out a majority of the employees or all of the eligible employees for clinical income pay in this department, you can click this load eligible employees checkbox up here. When I do that, it's going to go through and do a few checks. First, it's going to look for just employees who are in a particular status to be loaded into the form. As an example, employees on work break or unpaid statuses will not be loaded into the form. But another thing that it's doing is it's running a check against a setup table that we have for eligible job codes for this particular earnings code. So CIP is a specific earnings code that is only available to certain people in certain roles or certain job codes. And so we have a setup table for this. Let me go ahead and show you that. This is our CIP eligible job code setup table. Essentially, it's a very basic table that just says which job codes are eligible for CIP. And so if I need to add or delete rows here, I can do that. I can also use the prompt lookup to find job codes if I'm not sure what job code that I'm entering. Once I've saved all of the job codes to the setup table, our form is going to dynamically go through all of the employees in that department and pull back only the employees where their job code is on that table. So I clicked the load eligible employees and it returned all employees who are not on work break or unpaid statuses that have a job code that is listed in our CIP eligible job code table. So that's going to be a total of 43 different employees. So it's a really nice, quick, easy way to pull in people without having to sit there and add 43 individual rows and search for every single employee ID. Now from here, you can go down the list and just enter in goal amounts for each individual. As we do so, note that the goal amounts can be different. They don't have to be the same depending on how much each employee needs to get paid. Now, one of the other great features about this form is sometimes you need to pay employees from different chart fields, but all for clinical income pay or CIP, or all under the same earning code and same effective date. So we've added some dynamic ability in our eForm to specify which chart field each employee is using. I'm going to go ahead and click the Show Line Item chart field. Let's say I want to pay the first 3 employees from a different funding source than the rest of them. Once I click this button, a few things will happen. First, in our chart fields grid, you'll note that we have a toggle link button available for all rows. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Then down in the payees grid, we have a few more fields that were hidden that now show to the user. This is going to be the current chart field that is set up for the employee to get paid from, as well as a field called manual, which tells you if the employee is linked to the chart field we have above, or if they have been manually set to something different. And then we have a toggle link button. Let's talk about these toggle link buttons. If I need to change the chart field that this particular employee is getting paid from, what I would want to do is simply unlink this particular row from the chart field up above. And to do that, I can click this toggle link button in this row itself. When I do that, you'll note that the manual question mark field switched to manual. It no longer says linked. And now I've got my chart fields opened up to edit. I can choose a different chart field for this individual to get paid from. If I wanted to relink it, because I accidentally picked the wrong row or I received special approval for all of these employees to be paid from this particular chart field, I can go ahead and re-click the toggle link button and it will actually relink the row to the chart field you entered above and change all the values to match what's listed in the chart field grid. So if I have 20 of the 43 rows that need to change, and I wanted to open this up to change those rows, instead of going through and clicking the toggle link button for each row that I need to change, what I can do instead is just click that toggle link all button. I'm going to get a message saying this is going to unlink and set all the lines to manually maintained. Are you sure? And I'm going to say yes. When I do that, as expected, all 43 rows are going to be unlinked, and you'll see that we now have opened up our fields to change them. Let me scroll over here. Now all of the rows are set to manual, and if we wanted to close off rows here, we can again toggle individual rows to be linked to the chart field above. If the row is set to manual, but the chart field is still the same as above in the form, it's not going to break anything really. All we're doing is basically determining whether or not these fields are opened up to be manually changed to a different chart field. If I need to close all of them and relink all of the fields to the chart field that's listed above, I can go ahead and click this toggle link all button, and it gives us a different message saying that it will set all the lines to these values. So this logic is able to determine if all the rows in the payees grid were opened up for manual change or if they were linked in the first place and display a different message depending on which one it is. Okay, so that is everything I wanted to talk about for CIP. Let's go ahead and change the earnings code from CIP to a different one. First, I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the eligible employees from the grid. Notice that the 3 employees that had changes stay within the form, which is going to be helpful. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to remove the show line item chart fields. And now I'm going to change it to be an NDB earning code to show you one more feature on this form. When I changed the earning code, all of the payees were dropped from the grid, which is expected. This is a feature that we have so that we don't have any employees remaining when the earnings code is changed. That's why I left those 3 employees. I wanted to show you that they will get deleted out. And now we have a payment type field that we can select from. Both of our multi-pay and additional pay eForms use the same setup table called the additional pay options. In fact, let me show you that because that also drives what earnings codes we're able to select from the earning code dropdown. So, as a reminder, this is our additional pay option setup table. We have several groups. One is our campus, one is hospital, and one is the university health academics. And under each group, we have different earning codes set up with various criteria. For example, the department that I selected for our eForm is 00847 is actually a University Health Academics Group Department. If I go through this list, you'll note that ADD and ADT is not an option we have on the multi-pay form. That's because the checkbox for this allow multi-pay is not selected. So we have 3 earning codes that is selected. It's CIP, DBS, and NDB that all have the allow multi-pay selected and turned on. That's why we only see these 3 selectable codes on the multi-pay form. Under each of these earning codes, we can set up different payment types, and that's what's driving the payment type option. Since we selected NDB under the UHA academics group, these 4 payment types show as options. So when I change that payment type, it appears in this upper section. In this lower section, the payment type is dynamic, and we can change that for each individual employee we load if desired. Since we selected the payment type up at the top, I can click this Load Eligible Employee button, and it will load the grid with all of the eligible employees for this particular earning code based upon the logic that has been defined. So it's going to populate all of these employees into the grid with the payment type that is selected at the upper section. If I change this above right here, it's not going to change anything in the payees grid below. If we ever needed to change the payment type for all eligible employees, we could simply just click this Load Eligible Employees to remove everyone and then re-add them once we've selected the payment type we want to change it to. But one of the fantastic things about this eForm is that we allow flexibility here for each individual employee's payment type based upon what makes the most sense. Once I go through and fill out all of the goal amounts for all of these different employees, I can click the Submit button. As mentioned earlier, we do have configured validations happening on this form. This particular validation is determining the eligible account ranges for this earning code. So I'm not going to be able to actually submit the eForm because the account was entered in the chart field, does not actually fall within this range. Once I've submitted my eForm, a couple things are going to happen. First, our AWE is going to build our workflow path. Both the multi-pay and the single pay eForm use augmented routing that allows you to easily make changes to your workflow, like including steps or swapping steps, but without having to change the underlying process or definition ID configured to the form itself. So with the multi-pay, we have 4 different paths that it can take. One of them is the CIP path. We have a campus and a UHA path, as well as a hospital path, and then down here on the bottom is the USHE path. Notice that each path has its own workflow setup. For example, the CIP path has only 1 step, which is payroll. We actually want CIPs to go straight into the system, as that is something that we needed here at the University of Utah. Although we do have a step set up here, the VISIF or the logic for the step is actually set to false. When the workflow goes to build, it's going to see this is a CIP and take that path and see what steps it needs to add. And it's going to find that the only step we've configured for this path is actually false. So the form will go to automatically authorized and go directly into the system. In a completely different path, the campus and UHA path is going to have potentially up to 3 different approvers for that path. And then each step has its own conditions that need to be met in order for that approver to route for that form. So first, the AWE will build for the multi-pay form, and then if there is any routing that occurs, we are going to get an email and work list notifications sent to the approvers that are needing to approve that pending step. And in that email notification, it is going to contain information for the eForm itself, as well as links to get that approver to the evaluate task so they can approve the form or do whatever action they need to take on that eForm. And that concludes the multi-pay eForm demonstration. Excellent. Excuse me. I want to turn the reins over to Tad, and he's going to talk all about the Leave eForm and all of the amazing functionality that it has within that. Thanks, Tad.
All right, can you hear me okay? Hopefully, yes, all right. Well, I'm taking a little bit of a unique approach here because of the way the Leave eForm was designed. I've chosen to try to do a live demo because I'm switching between roles of employees and supervisors. So let's give it a shot. I'm going to turn off my camera, share my screen here. All right. So when an employee requests leave, in the past, they would have quite the experience in even trying to locate the correct form to use. On our website, they would have to, whether or not they were looking to do an FMLA request with parental leave or military leave or a non-health related leave, they would have to locate that particular paper form, of course, and then try to analyze with the different things on the form what information they needed to provide here on the form and attach certain documents. And then that form hopefully would get routed and sent to the correct supervisor, and in some cases, even directors and vice presidents and so forth. And after that, the leave team administrators, they had various ways of tracking those leave requests. And essentially, they were doing most of that on spreadsheets. And it became quite a challenge for them. Here's just a bit of a screenshot of how they're attempting to track all the different dates regarding that leave request as it came in, not only the, of course, start and end dates of the leave and whether or not they were receiving approvals from the supervisors and VPs and so forth, but also the required letters that they send out as administrators. There was a lot of tracking going on in these Excel sheets. So as we worked with GT to design the form, we hoped that we could reduce the tracking effort from the leave team and make a much simpler process for the employee and the supervisors and directors who are acknowledging or approving these requests. So as we go through right now, you'll see that I'm going to try with multiple browsers here to log in as folks with different roles. And we're going to start with employee Irving, and we're going to submit a health-related request. To start off there, I just wanted to point out that the PeopleSoft component for requesting and then entering an FMLA leave, for this employee Irving, they don't have anything yet. And again, this is the delivered PeopleSoft page for tracking an FMLA request. But as we are going to see here, employee Irving logged in and they clicked a tile on our university portal to request leave, and they have landed on this navigation collection, and we're just going to start a request. I'm in a non-production base, so hopefully we can understand if there are any hiccups here. We're going to go with, I'll show you a few things here. This questionnaire, it's starting off hopefully with what seems to be a pretty straightforward question. What's your reason for taking leave? Birth, foster care, military duty, other, serious health condition. But as the user, as you can see, as they begin to answer questions, dynamic additional questions appears subsequently. Are you the parent of the child? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, I'm ready to go to the next step. But let's play along here and just say no. Okay, well, another one. Well, are you the legal guardian of the child? Are you a relative? More questions. In this case, this is helping the leave team, of course, gather what they need to and flag the request with certain requirements that they need to know about. But also the employee doesn't necessarily have to weed through so much information trying to provide the right answers. I'd just like to explore a little bit here. If they were to say military duty, is it for a medical issue related to military leave? Yes, okay, they can go to the next step. But what if no? Oh, wait a minute, is it for your exigency, annual training? Do you have military orders and so forth? With this kind of dynamic questioning, we're able to simplify quite a bit the employee's experience. And in a moment, we'll also see how we're doing that for the supervisors and deans and directors as well. In this case, let's go ahead and just start off with birth and adoption. I'm able, if I would like, to enter a preferred email. If I don't want it to be from what PeopleSoft has, I'm able to enter a phone number, and those can be different than what's in the system in case the employee on leave wants to be contacted in a unique way during their leave. We can stay continuous and intermittent on the leave frequency. I will just say, let's have the anticipated leave date be today. And why not May for the anticipated end date? We're asking the employee, how much parental leave will you use? Do you want to use personal preference? Sure. Would you like to retain some of your vacation days and not have some of them exhausted? These are business options that employees have to, of course, say, nah, don't use up all my vacation. Hang on to 2 of those days. The acknowledgements here, hopefully they read them. And they can attach documents. So as you can see, the questions that they had to go through for this leave request for a birth, they aren't that complicated. And they are also able to upload in a secure way. Attachments, we can pick, sure, medical documents. And these are uploaded to the request and available for leave team administrators to review later if they need. All right, I'm going to submit it, and then we'll move on to the role of the supervisor. Submit it there. I'm going to cross my fingers that the non-production environment plays well. And we did. Wonderful. So now I'm in a different browser here, and I am logged in as supervisor. I'm going to refresh the work list page here. Which base am I in? Right there. Yeah. All right, we'll try that again. I'll try one more time. Sometimes the refresh looks like it wants to be a little bit. And then that's the init. Hmm. In Stubborn, we are going to do another request for a different employee and see if we can get a better result here. We'll go with Dylan, and I will submit a different kind of leave request. We had a little bit better luck earlier. We'll give it a shot. Maybe I can show you a couple more fields of validation there. It was doing. This time we will just do a serious health condition. And as you can see, more dynamic fields there. We're just going to put for self. I'm in our development environment, so hopefully it'll move along okay. It's identifying the supervisor. We're going to log into as them next. Try this again. Just leave those as no. One little extra thing of validation here. If I were to try to put in a date that's within 3 days of the leave, I'll just do the very next day. It would say, sorry, you got to be, it's 4 days or greater. So that's handy, just some validation on those fields. There's one type of leave, a military exigency leave that doesn't require any duration there. So that validation doesn't exist for that kind of leave. I don't need to attach anything. We'll just hit submit. And as that's moving along, I'm going to grab the supervisor ID again and try to log in with a fresh session there. There we go. Much better. So I've got my serious health condition to approve. It's telling me as the supervisor, this is for employee Dylan. It's showing me visually what they submitted, and it's saying that I can acknowledge this request. And sure, I acknowledge. I'm going to personally, here for the demo purposes, take note of this for the request ID here, 246326. We're gonna put that right there just for good measure. And I'm going to acknowledge it as the supervisor. And because that's now been acknowledged, if I am the leave team administrator, now as the leave team administrator, I'm logged in here and I'm going to take a look at that leave request. All right, so you've seen me very quickly acknowledge as a supervisor this serious health condition leave request. And I didn't have to navigate my way through or have a very difficult time sending it back to the leave team administrators. I got my work done as a supervisor, and now as the leave team administrator, the fields that I'm able to see are much more and a lot more useful. We wanted to help the leave team be able to drift away from tracking on spreadsheets. So not only are we going to see what the user submitted, but we're going to see several fields here where I can track whether or not the initial letter was sent, when due dates happen, and hopefully we'll get it to integrate and talk to that PeopleSoft component of leave on the leave tracking side. So as the leave administrator, I'm not really interested to change those values. That looks pretty good to me. Now on this request status, I can say in progress, denied, approved, or maybe it was a submission error. For our purposes today, we'll put approved and we'll make it pretty straightforward. We're just gonna say that the actual start date is today. Or I can say tomorrow. Hopefully it'll let me. Where did I put the begin date? Keyword here. It wants the end date to be okay. Maybe it will. We're getting all kinds of validation stuff going on.
Tad, try the leave ended at the top of the screen.
Yeah, it's still kicking in that validation. Thank you, Joseph. Like, hopefully our environment will play nicer. Might still not like that. There we go. Much nicer. I was trying to show you something and we're getting through it. Okay, and I'm going to say employee illness. Okay. We'll do a full 480 hours. And as a leave team representative, I can either use the delivered pages to go and see if this employee is eligible for FMLA, or I can call on that delivered PeopleSoft module and run the same eligibility check that's on that page, but here within the leave eForm. And then we'll just say these. Make it pretty straightforward. Let's see. All right. Because of some of the validation was going on there in our non-production environment, I'm not quite sure if it was talking well to this leave component here. I'll give it a shot and see if it came over okay. We can try to see if the other one did, but in a world where I wasn't attempting to show you some of those validation issues, we would see that it saves back to this leave component. And as soon as the leave administrator puts in the request start date and the end date and saves it in an approved status, it will update this component. And the records, of course, are viewable through Query Manager of those requests. And we can see several fields that the employee has entered, and of course, the supervisor, the comments, and so forth, and be queried so that reports can be made to send out to the leave team and see which requests might be behind, which are getting closer to deadlines. And it's been very efficient for our users and our supervisors to be able to approve. And sometimes with the leave team's requests, when they've gone live now, and we've enhanced the form in certain ways so that routing can happen on non-health related leaves where the supervisor can indicate a director to send it to by putting their ID in, and then it will go to vice presidents and so forth to approve the final submission there. So yeah, the form has helped the leave team, the supervisors, and the employees submit it much more quickly than they were with the paper forms. And I'll wrap up there. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Tad. And thanks, Stacy. It looks like there was a question here on the additional pay form. Does the additional pay eForm work for deductions also, Stacy? Oh, you're on mute.
All right, there we go. Let's try this again. So the University of Utah does not have a need for deductions. So it was not configured or designed for deductions. Not to say that it couldn't handle that, but that was not a need for us.
Another question, with all of the data in the GTE form, why did you choose to insert data into the delivered FMLA status page?
Yeah, the leave team still uses that page and that request. They still use it. We want to make sure that we have documented those with the delivered tools and not just trying to deprecate and end of life a delivered page. We still want to use those. We have business partners on the hospital side who use that too, and we want that historical knowledge, regardless of whether or not the submission came through a GT Leave form or from other folks in the broader organization who aren't yet on that form.
Thank you. Gil asks, does University of Utah interface to the state of Utah for payroll?
So the University of Utah, the additional pay eForm and the multi-pay eForm will interface and save into the additional pay component for PeopleSoft for the University of Utah. Yes.
Okay, but you're not you don't rely on the state of Utah at all for your payroll processing, payroll filing. Okay.
No, we handle that in-house for the organization of University of Utah, not the state of Utah. Correct. Yep.
Good. Thank you. And I'm just going to say those were both fantastic demos. In fact, two of the best that I've seen. Even though, Tad, you had a couple of hiccups, it was really, those are great forms that you guys have designed and created. It drives the point home, I think, that you can use GTE forms to automate any level of complexity, because those are not simple forms. You can create a simple form in an hour. Those obviously took longer than that. And I'm curious, particularly the multi-pay or the additional pay form, why the university didn't create that sooner. I mean, that looks like a really great form that you guys could have been using for the last decade. Any thoughts,
Yes.
Stacey?
We have been anxiously wanting and needing to use that form. We have had other priorities. It was actually on our radar. And then, similar to everyone else in the entire world, the pandemic hit. We also had some struggles with the Kronos outage and some other items that were unique to the university. And so it put some of our other projects on pause for a period of time. And so we are picking everything back up, and we are full steam ahead with this form and many other forms.
Awesome. I see Samantha added a comment. We created a pay form, but in PeopleSoft before we installed GT. Users love it. Highly recommend this type of solution. That's great. And Tad, I noticed that there were some people commenting on your references to Severance characters. And I noticed your background is also Severance inspired.
Hey, Scott, there's a
show.
question in the Q&A. I don't know if you saw that one.
Thank you, Alicia. I didn't notice that. Who has the capability to create a GTE form, a functional person or a technical person? How do you guys manage that at U of U?
At the University of Utah, the answer is actually D, all of the above. We all have the access and the capability to create a form. And I am anxiously awaiting. Typically, we will partner with our technical counterpart or the university IT team. And we work very closely hand in hand with one another. That's typically how all of the projects do work and function for us. But I am anticipating and anxiously awaiting building a form directly from the HRIS team with Tad and I, and doing that all, with us, isolated with us, and having UIT support us in whatever needs that we have.
And if I might echo what Stacy said, and also add that during the design and planning phases of the Leave eForm, Alicia and Lynette, several folks from GT were, in addition to partnering with us, they were in the trenches with us and the business folks in getting the requirements and making sure that they and we, together with the business folks, understood the needs. And we designed it together as a large group. And then once GT had, moved on and we're live, Stacy and I have worked to do kinds of requests, adjusting validation, adjusting the kinds of documents that folks can attach on certain kinds of leave requests. And we're able to do almost all of that with the config tools that GT has. So it's been quite a positive experience. And yeah, we're eager to keep hearing from the business folks and enhancing as we can.
Thank you. And Aaron, that's a great question. And it really depends on the organization, how that is managed, who's responsible for those kinds of tasks, and the degree of complexity of your business process requirements, the process that you're looking to automate with GT eForms. So it's a paradigm shift, because these aren't things that necessarily need to be relegated exclusively to development. They don't have to be handled by a developer team. There's a lot that business analysts can do through the configuration tools that Tad had mentioned. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Shelly. Oh, that's the automated attendant. Never mind. Let's see. Blaze asked, how long was the development process of these forms from start to go live? And that's a trick question.
That is a trick question. Tad might be the more accurate representation for the U between these two individual forms. As I mentioned, the additional pay eForm was actually initially started before COVID, and we were just about to do UAT and get in and test it and validate it and do all the things. And then COVID happened, and then the outage happened, as I mentioned. So it was quite a bit longer for the additional pay in the multi-pay form. But once we picked it back up, it was a matter of months, two or 3 months, even for this level of complexity. Tad, how long was your form?
Yeah, ours was also interrupted, not by the COVID stuff, but definitely by the Kronos outage. But if I try to recall back from the point of planning and development to user acceptance testing and now go live. I would say it feels like about a quarter of time in that planning and development and user acceptance testing, about a quarter of a year, 3 months or so, maybe, give or take. And then we've had periods where the business users wanted to do a bit of a soft launch now that they flipped on routing. Yeah, we're learning a lot more. I'd say that's my feeling on about how long it took.
There's another question here. With additional pay, does the form take uploads if multiple employees to pay?
So with the additional pay eForm, that was a topic that was discussed in great detail. There were certain departments that were used to paying from a spreadsheet and doing forms in that nature. So the solution to that is to, instead of allowing an upload of, say, an Excel spreadsheet or a different type of document, is to do one form and then use the clone feature in the multi-pay eForm.
Yeah, that was a cool function. I like that.
Yeah, that will be great. Once they get their one form done, they're ready to rock and roll for any and other multiple forms, and then they just make small tweaks each pay period or each time that they need to pay a mass group for that department.
If I could add,
yeah, go ahead, Jay.
That kind of functionality is possible, though, with the batch tool. So if the U decided to change that and allow spreadsheet upload, that would be a feature they could implement with GT.
Good point. Thank you. Another question, 2 questions in the queue. I may have missed it, but it is the structured and unstructured data entered or attached to the eForm stored independently from the delivered FMLA page data that gets pushed through. Also, are there any leaves that auto provision or approve? If not, why not? Policy or technical hurdles?
I may need you to repeat the first part of the question, but the second one, auto approve, no, and that's mostly policy. At the very least, the supervisors, policy-wise, must acknowledge, and there are certain types of leave where beyond the supervisor's acknowledgement, there's actual approval and denials from directors and VPs. What was the first part of the?
Actually, let me tag on to that, Tad. With regards to auto approve, I did want to mention that you can set up auto approve within GT eForms. It's just a matter of setting up the logic so that if this particular request meets these requirements, we can go ahead and just pass that through without anybody having to look at it. The first part of the question was, is the structured and unstructured data entered or attached to the eForm stored independently from the delivered FMLA page data that gets pushed through?
Yeah, and Todd, they're just referring there. I answered this question. I think it was the response they're looking for is it only stored in the FMLA tables? No, it's also stored. All of the form data is stored in records that can be queried and reports run off of that data. So that spreadsheet that Todd showed earlier, they were able to eliminate that spreadsheet because all of that's now tracked in the form. And they're able to query and run reports and gather the data they need through that process as opposed to a spreadsheet.
Yeah, good point. And we can join, of course, we can join the records from the form if needs be to delivered records as well. But all the information is available through Query Manager, query trees, and so forth. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. One other question from John Frank. Are any notifications or work lists pushed to related departments like WC, ADA, etc.?
We have a lot of those within our same, it's within HR. But if we needed to, we of course definitely could route that form to additional spots if needs be. But all HR does include right now ADA, and the absence management team does workers' comp as well.
Thank you. Let's see. I think that's it.
Appreciate everyone's understanding. Yeah, that non-prod base, we've been applying images and stuff. So, but anyway, thank you. It's worked great for us.
Awesome. Yeah, Stacy and Tad, thank you very much. That was awesome. I look forward to our team getting the recording out to share with other folks. And Again, one more plug. We'll be having our next Lunch and Learn in March. I think it's scheduled for March 20th. There'll be announcements going out for that. You can also find any of these events on our webpage at gideontaylor.com. That particular Lunch and Learn is going to focus on the integration between GT eForms and our IDA digital assistant with some really cool functionality that we're going to be releasing this year. And then hope to see some of you, if not many of you, at the Alliance Conference in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. And I think that's it. So once again, thank you very much to Stacy and Tad from the University of Utah. Great solutions, awesome demos. And everybody, I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.